Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Juta Padakamalam Sri Gurun.
Welcome back to online Bhakti Shastri course, Bhagavad Gita, Unit 1, Lesson number 5. In our previous lesson, we covered verses 12 to 48 of the second chapter. We presented a brief overview of Krishna's instructions on Gyan, Krishna's responses and defeating of Arjuna's first 3 reasons for not fighting. We presented a summary of Bhagavad Gita chapter 2 and explained how chapter 2 of Bhagavad Gita summarizes the contents of the entire Gita. Evaluated the relevance of the Karma Kanda division of the Vedas and the practice of Krishna consciousness. Let's again take a look at our overview of the second chapter. As we mentioned, after explaining Jnana Yoga, Karma Kanda, and Karma Yoga, Buddhi Yoga, Arjuna in text number 53, he inquires from Krishna about what are the symptoms of the liberated soul who's attained transcendence. And Krishna, throughout the remainder of the second chapter, he responds to Arjuna's question. Stita pragyasha karbasha, Arjuna is asking, text number 54. Stita pragyasha karbasha, samadhi shashta keshavaha, stita di kim pravashita, kim asita prajeta kim. Let's look at the meaning of the word stita pragya. Stita means to be situated, and gya is knowledge, and pragya means complete knowledge or spiritual knowledge. When Prahlad was teaching the school mates, he was explaining them, Kol marat acharet pragya. From the very early stage in life, from 5 years old, acharet, one should behave pragya, with wisdom, with transcendental knowledge. So the translation. O Krishna, what are the symptoms of one whose consciousness is thus merged in transcendence? How does he speak? What is his language? How does he sit? How does he walk? So these questions that Arjuna is asking Krishna, what are his symptoms? How does he speak? What is his language? How does he sit? How does he walk? These are answered in the remaining verses of the second chapter. What are his symptoms in text 55? What's his speech? Text 55 to 57. How does he sit? Text 58 to 63. And how he walks? Text 64 to 72. So regarding the speech, Prabhupada's commenting, speech is the most important quality of any man. It is said that a fool is undiscovered as long as he does not speak. And certainly a well-dressed fool cannot be identified unless he speaks. These are aphorisms from English literature that Prabhupada is including here. Text number 56, if we take a look at the text. One who is not disturbed in mind even amidst the threefold miseries, or elated when there is happiness, and who is free from attachment, fear and anger, is called a sage, a steady of mind. In the material world, one is unaffected by whatever good or evil he may obtain, neither praising it nor despising it, is firmly fixed in perfect knowledge. So these 2 verses, they're describing actually the way the person speaks. In text 59, elated when there is happiness. That will be manifest in the person just expressing elation as a result of some happy circumstance. Whatever good or evil he may obtain, neither praising it nor despising it. So the self-realized person is not overly enamored by the happiness of this world, and definitely is not constantly talking about their happy situation, nor the miseries that they experience in this world. If you analyze the materialists, basically that's all they talk about. All they're talking about is how what happiness they've had. We got to work today, there was hardly any traffic jam. Oh, and then their misery, I went out for the lunch break, it got caught in the rain, and basically just one thing to another, how they got happiness and how they're suffering because of this inconvenience. But basically their mind is constantly absorbed in this duality, happiness and distress, and so constantly out of their mouth comes simply these types of descriptions of their happiness or the distress that they face, and they never speak beyond that. Recently, I was visiting family from where I'm born, Australia, and we had some family functions. And I was talking to people who are not involved in Krishna consciousness, and it was quite unusual for me to see how the people socialize and function in that way. Actually, it's called socializing, and it's a type of therapy, a good socializer that you can talk. And some people, they can just chit chat, and it's amazing how they can just ramble on. It seems like you're talking to some person and then they say, well, we came on the freeway. You know, they've repaired the freeway. Then, well, it's much faster. And they're just rambling on, and it agitates the other person, stimulates thoughts in their mind. And then in this way, whatever ridiculous, temporary, unimportant things pop into their mind, they speak out. And the two people doing that together, that constitutes what's called social interaction. But for the aspiring spiritualist, it's very much awkward to actually participate in such social interaction, because you're just thinking, well, what is the use? What is the point? Why are we discussing these useless things? But materialists, that's all they do. They consider that social life and being a friendly and a good conversationalist. But actually, this is just simply wasting one's energy and dissipating one's consciousness in all types of unnecessary, mundane things. So you'll find that as the spiritualists won't talk about that. You won't find them talking about these temporary things, about the weather, about politics, about the sport. Their mind is not observed. Yanisha Shadava Bhutanam Yasham Jagarti Bhutani. At the end of the chapter, Krishna's explaining that. What's nighttime for the person, the common people? That's the time of awakening for the self-realized soul. And the night time of the self-realized soul is a time of awakening. The things of the common being, the person, the things that the common people are interested in, the advanced transcendentalist has no interest in. Nighttime for the transcendentalist, the daytime of the materialist. And similarly, the daytime of the transcendentalist, the materialist cannot relate to the activities of the sense-controlled spiritualist. In the verses, Krishna is actually explaining it more from an impersonal point of view, that he's not talking about the happiness and distress that are constantly experiencing in this world. But the devotional, that's the impersonal Gyan level. But the level of the devotee is even higher than that, as Prabhupada mentions how what's the devotee's attitude towards happiness and distress? Accepts all miseries as the mercy of the Lord, thinking himself only worthy of more trouble due to his past misdeeds. And he sees that his miseries, by the grace of the Lord, are minimized to the lowest. Similarly, when he is happy, he gives credit to the Lord, thinking himself unworthy of the happiness. So the Jnani, he may be considering the happiness and distress of this world as temporary, and he doesn't absorb his mind in it. A devotee, he's considering the happiness and distress of this world to be directly Krishna's mercy. Anything happy circumstances, he considers this as Krishna's mercy. And any difficulty he finds himself in, he also considers that Krishna's mercy, thinking that actually I was due so much more trouble, and Krishna has just given me a token, which has been minimized to the lowest. And in this way, a devotee is constantly absorbed in Krishna and seeing Krishna everywhere. And that will manifest in the way the devotee speaks. That they will speak that, how are you, Prabhu? Oh, by Krishna's mercy, I'm fine, thank you. Because he's thinking like that, and therefore his voice, the way he speaks, will reflect his consciousness. So we discussed speaking of three different categories. The materialists are simply rambling on about the happiness they acquire and the suffering that comes. The Jnani, the self-realized soul, he's not talking about anything of that nature at all. And the devotee, he's talking about how Krishna's mercy is prevalent. Krishna's mercy is evident in every stage of his life. And this way, three different types of talking. That's in regard to Kar Bhasha. What is his language? Now, Kim Asita, how does he sit? What we are discussing here, not exactly the asan, perhaps he's in Siddhasan or in Shukasan or in Padmasan, not exactly Kim Asita, what type of asan, but it means how he sits in regard to how he deals with activities that are unfavorable for Krishna consciousness, and what's his attitude to that type of activity? Is he bitter? Is he always meditating on doing those forbidden things? What is his attitude in regard to the restrictions of spiritual practices? So Krishna gives an analogy, in text number 58, the analogy of the tortoise, that one who is able to withdraw his senses from sense objects, as the tortoise draws its limbs from within the shell, is firmly fixed in perfect consciousness. So just as the tortoise will extend the limbs in order to interact in a certain way, and when there's no need of interaction, the limbs are withdrawn into the body. So in this way, Krishna is explaining that spiritualists, they use their senses in the appropriate way, and when not required, they withdraw the senses. They don't use them in an inappropriate way. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada gives the example of the senses are like venomous serpents. They're always inclined to act loosely. I remember many years ago after a flood in Mayapur, the snakes, they come into the buildings to get shelter from the flood because the ground gets, all their holes in the ground get flooded out. So there's snakes in all the buildings. After the flood, we were cleaning up and there was one snake, little round one, sitting underneath, been there a long time under some boxes. I was thinking the snake's dead, so still, long time. So I had a little stick to just sweep it out of the way. As soon as I touched it with the snake, boom, flew to life. And it was interesting that usually animals, you come with a stick, they go in the opposite direction, but this snake immediately activated and heading in my direction. Fortunately, it was a small snake, so I was able to get out of the way, but very dangerous. At any time, they can act so ferociously. And the senses are like such snakes. Thakur Bhaktivinoda sings that, Sharirara Bijajal Jodindriya Taikal. Jodindriya Taikal, the senses are our enemies. Jive Pele Bishoy Shagori, because it's because of the opportunity or the facility of sense enjoyment that the senses provide that we take birth again in this material world, one life after another, different material bodies. So in that way, they're the deadly enemies. So these snakes, these venomous serpent snakes, they need to be, just like with a snake charmer, we're able to mesmerize the snakes, and they're no longer dangerous. So similarly, the senses, the danger, they have to be has to be mesmerized. We have to charm the senses. Actually, the word Prabhupada uses, a snake charmer, is interesting. The word charm, it's a word meaning some mystical spell. So we have to place our senses into a spell by keeping them thoroughly engaged, constantly in connection to Krishna. And in that way, we can charm the senses. The example of Ambarish that we gave earlier, that he's engaged his senses in cleaning his hands in cleaning the temple, his eyes in seeing the deity, his ears in hearing the Harikatha, his tongue in tasting the prasad. In this way, the senses enjoy spiritually, and they're preoccupied, and they're charmed, and in that way, the senses, when the allurement of sense gratification comes, then the senses are not disturbed. This is the process of Krishna consciousness. And regarding text number 59, Bishaya vinivartante nirahara shadehina rasa vajam raso apyasya param dristava nivartate. The embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, though the taste of sense objects remains, but ceasing such engagements by experiencing a higher taste, he is fixed in consciousness. In this purport, Prabhupada gives another analogy that, he gives a couple of analogies. The first one is that the process of restriction from sense enjoyment by rules and regulations is something like restricting a diseased person from certain type of eatables. The patient, however, neither likes the restrictions nor loses his taste for the eatables. So simply denying oneself the sensual engagement is not the process that Krishna recommends. One has to replace the lower engagement with a higher engagement, and that way one will not be meditating on the pleasure of the lower engagement, because he'll be enjoying a higher engagement that's called a param dristva, a higher experience, or as Prabhupada translates as the higher taste. One who has tasted the beauty of the Supreme Lord Krishna in the course of his advancement in Krishna consciousness no longer has a taste for dead material things. So this is the simple process of sense control that Krishna consciousness teaches us. We engage our senses in the service of the Lord, and in that way we're able to protect ourselves from engaging in the materialistic activities. The next section that we'll be discussing this morning will carry on from text 60 of chapter 2 right up to text number 9 of chapter 3. And the theme that is running through these verses is based upon Arjuna's proposal in text number 5 of the 2nd chapter, where he proposes, Shreya Bhoktum Bhaiksham Apiha Loke. It would be better to live in this world by begging. So Arjuna is proposing here that he gives up his karma. He becomes a renunciate, and he abandons his prescribed duties as the Kshatriya, and he simply becomes a mendicant, recluse, and living by begging. And that would be better. So Krishna's response is that rather than giving up the work, you should carry on with the work, but give up your interest in enjoying the result of the work. So rather than karma sannyas, where one gives up the prescribed duty completely, Krishna recommends karma yoga, where one carries on with the prescribed duty and gives up the attachment to enjoying the result. And Krishna comments in, as we mentioned, the text number 48, that you carry on with your work, yogasta kuru karmani, you perform your prescribed duty, sangam chaktva, but you give up attachment to the result of that work. That is called yoga. It's called karma yoga. And in the 5th chapter, just to further clarify these two concepts, Krishna mentions tayas tu karma sannyasat, karma yoga vishishate, that of the two, between the two, karma sannyas, where one completely abandons the prescribed duties and goes for renunciation, or karma yoga, one carries on performing the activities but gives up attachment to the result. Of the two, Krishna recommends karma yoga. He considers that superior to karma sannyas. So verses 60 of the 2nd chapter to text number 9 of the 3rd chapter are basically giving so much evidence why karma yoga is superior to karma sannyas. So in these verses, Krishna, he speaks very insightful words, clarifying the importance of karma yoga. There's many analogies that Krishna gives in the verses, and also Prabhupada gives in the purports, and there's many direct statements which clarify this. We can take a look at some of these statements as we go through these verses. In text number 61, Prabhupada, he quotes the whole section of the description of Ambarish Maharaj and how he controlled his senses by engaging them in the higher activities of Krishna consciousness. Savai Mana Krishna Pad Aravindayo, his mind was fixed at the lotus feet of the Lord, Krishna Pad Aravinda. Vachangshi Vaikuntha Gunana Anuvarnane, his Vachangshi, his voice is used to Anuvarnane, to describe the Vaikuntha Guna, the qualities of the spiritual world. Karo Harir Mandira Majanadishu, with his hands he's cleaning the temple of the Lord. Shrutam Chakar Chuta Sat Katodaye, with his ears, he's hearing the Sat Kata, the transcendental description of the Lord's activities and instructions. Mukunda Lingalaya Darshane Drisho, his eyes he's using to gaze upon the beautiful form of Lord Mukunda in the temple. Tad Britra Gatra Sparsha Anga Shangama, with his arms he's embracing the devotees of the Lord. Granam Chatat Pada Saroja Shorabe, with his nose he's smelling the fragrance of the flowers that have been offered to the lotus feet of the Lord. Prabhupada ki. Srimat Tulasha Rasanam Tadarpite, with his tongue he's tasting the remnants of the tulasi leaves that have been offered to the lotus feet of the Lord. Pado Hari Kshetra Pad Anu Sharpane, with his legs he's walking to the temple of the Lord. Shiro Rishikesha Pada Abhivandane, and with his head, he's using his head to bow down to the lotus feet of the Lord. Kamam Chadashe Natu Kama Kamyaya Yatutam Shloka Janashraya Rati. By acting in this way, one can awaken one's love for the Lord. And Prabhupada, he's quoted these verses regularly in these sections of the Gita, and particularly in describing the process of sense control. And Prabhupada's quoting these verses and the example of Maharaj Ambarish. Prabhupada comments in the purport further, the senses can be completely controlled only by the strength of devotional service to Krishna. So one has to have an alternative engagement, and on the strength of that engagement where the mind and the senses become occupied and become engaged, one can lose his interest in the material activity. And then In verses 62 to 63, 64, Krishna is explaining the risks of karma sannyas, where a person abandons the work and doesn't accept the alternative, the higher occupation of a transcendental activity, because the mind is constantly meditating. Jayato bishayang pungsha. So is that meditation of the mind, even a person may externally have given up the material activities, the uncontrolled mind will constantly be remembering those activities. Jayato bishayang. Sangashteshu upajayate. From meditation comes attachment. Upajayate sangas. Sangat sanjayate karma. Then there's specific desires. Karma krodha. Then there's anger. Then there's bewilderment. Krodha bhavati samoha. Samoha shmriti vibhramaha. And then one forgets. Shmriti brangshat buddhina. So his intelligence is lost. Buddhina shat pranashati. And again, even he may be on the platform of renunciation and having extricated himself from the material activities. The risk of falling down is always present because the mind is not engaged in a higher occupation. In text number 67, Krishna is explaining Indriyanam hi charatam yan mano nuvadiyate tat asya haranti pragyam vayurnavam ivam bashi. As a strong wind sweeps away a boat on the water, even one of the roaming senses on which the mind focuses can carry away a man's intelligence. So unless the senses have an engagement, a transcendental engagement, there's any time the senses can become allured, can become attracted to their objects. Just like the boat on the water, the wind will come along and sweep it away anywhere. However, if we put the anchor out, then the wind comes along, the boat will remain steady. So we have to anchor our consciousness by keeping the senses and mind engaged. And then when the allurement, the objects of the senses and material enjoyment are made available, one is anchored because one has a higher engagement for the senses and the mind, and in that way he won't be swept away. Yatato apikunteya purushasya vipashchita indriyani pramatini haranti prasabam manaha. Indriyani pramatini, because the senses are so powerful. Haranti prashabam manaha. The senses are very powerful, and they can, unless we have a higher engagement, the mind can become allured, and very quickly we can be swept away by the very powerful senses. Different examples that Prabhupada gives in the purports. He gives the example of Vishvamitra and Menika. He gives the example of Haridas Thakur and Maya Devi. Because Haridas Thakur was absorbed in chanting, he was able to remain undisturbed even in the midst of extreme allurement. He gives the example of Lord Shiva. In the third chapter, Krishna is continuing on to explain the advantages of karma yoga, of a karma sannyas. In text 6, Kamendriyani samyamya ya aste manasa smaran indriyatan vimudatma mitta charasa uchite. So simply by restraining the working senses, Kamendriyani samyamya ya aste manasa smaran. However, if one's mind is not engaged, simply by stopping one's prescribed activities and imitating the renounced life, indriyatan vimudatma mitta charasa uchite. Krishna is not very much appreciating this practice. And Prabhupada gives the example in the purport to the next verse, the show bottle spiritualism to cheat the innocent public. What is that show bottle spiritualism? Prabhupada's explaining in his lectures on this topic that in the medicine store, the Oshodolaya, on the street, they may have a large bottle with red water inside the glass bottle, and they shine a light on that bottle so that you can see it's a medicine store. And Prabhupada himself had a medicine store in Allahabad. So if you're going to the store and you want to get medicine, that medicine in the red bottle, that you drink that medicine actually won't cure you. That's just colored water. That's called a show bottle. It's called a show bottle. So Prabhupada's using this example that simply by making a show, simply by putting on the cloth of a renunciate, that won't purify the material desires in your heart. And therefore, it's better, Krishna is recommending, Yashtindriyani manasa niyamya araravate arjuna kamendriyani karma yoga mishaktam shavashishyate. Simply stopping one's work, but inside there are so many desires for engagement, that's not encouraged by Krishna, but rather, Indriyani manasa niyamya aravate Arjuna. You should engage your senses and mind according to the niyam, according to the regulations. So in our case, in devotional service, that's the direct regulative practices of bhakti yoga, like shravanam, kirtanam, smaranam, etc. We engage directly in those activities. In this case, because Krishna is not directly talking about bhakti yoga, he's talking about karma yoga, he's recommending Arjuna perform his prescribed duties and give up attachment to the result. Karmendriyani karma yoga mashaktam shavashishate. That is far superior than imitating the detached platform when inside one is actually not qualified and has material desires. So to summarize, Arjuna's proposition was that he give up his work as a Kshatriya and he simply go to the forest and beg. And Krishna is saying, don't give up your work as a Kshatriya. You should work, carry on with your prescribed duties. You should give up attachment to enjoying the result. And there's so many reasons why that's superior. Because the chance of falling down is always there if one doesn't have a higher engagement. The method of controlling the mind and senses without higher engagement is very difficult because one is always simply thinking of the things he can't have. So that brings us to the conclusion of Lesson 5. We were discussing in Lesson 5 an overview of Krishna's responses to Arjuna's questions in text 54 and the symptoms of a self-realized soul. We discussed the relevance of how Ashtita Dhiramuni regards happiness and distress, and we also discussed that from the devotional point of view. We identified reasons why karma yoga is superior to karma sannyas with reference to appropriate verses and analogies and examples from 258 to 38. And we discussed the relevance of karma yoga being superior to karma sannyas in relation to Arjuna's situation on the battlefield, that he should perform his prescribed duties as a Kshatriya without attachment, and in relation to ourselves, that rather than artificial attachment, we should engage ourselves in serving Krishna in many ways and in that way protect our Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada's concluding. So the yogis and other methods, they are trying to control the senses by force. I shall go to the Himalayas. I shall not see any more beautiful women. I shall close down my eyes. These are forceful. You cannot control your senses. There are many instances. You don't require to go to the Himalaya. You just remain in Los Angeles City and engage your eyes to see Krishna. You are more than a person who has gone to the Himalayas. You'll forget all other things. This is our process. You don't require to change your position. You engage your ears for hearing Bhagavad Gita as it is. You'll forget all nonsense. You engage your eyes to see the beauty of the deity of Krishna. You engage your tongue for tasting Krishna prasadam. You engage your legs to come to this temple. You engage your hands to work for Krishna. You engage your nose to smell the flowers offered to Krishna. Then where your senses will go, he's captivated all round. The perfection is sure. You don't require to control your senses forcibly. Don't see, don't do it, don't do it. No, you have to change the engagement. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.